Welcome
Welcome
to
to
the Journey
Journey
to
to
Oneness
Oneness
podcast
Podcast.
with your host,
Nikita,
and I'm Larry. And together,
we
we're
are
the
the
Thompsons.
Thompsons.
So, we just want to say thank you to everyone that's been listening and participating and reaching out to us. We got some really good feedback. We were very excited to see that we are being able to be a blessing to others.
Yes.
And so my wife, she got some really good information from people and some different feedbacks, and it really was a blessing to us. And for
Yes.
those that reached out and sent emails and text messages and phone calls,
Phone calls. Yes.
we just want to say God bless y'all, man, and thank you for the
Mhm.
encouragement. It was
Right.
it makes those other 30 some odd years of going through and going through and going through and going through. It makes it somewhat beneficial. So it's really a blessing. So we just want to say thank you. We appreciate y'all.
Yes.
Love you guys.
Overwhelming responses. Thank you. Thank you. And if we only help one person, then it was not done in vain.
Yeah, that
So
was
we
our
would
prayer.
love for you guys to like it and share it so
Yes.
other people can hear it because you never know who's going through something and they need to hear this word.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't take into account our own life and think
Right.
we're not beneficial to other people, but then other people sit down and say, "Man, that really helped me."
Right.
So it's we're blessed to be a blessing. That's my
Yes.
hope. That's our prayer, right?
Right.
Amen. So um one of the things that we left off with on the last episode, we were talking about knowing yourself. Was one of the top five things that we wanted to walk away with, um, and how important it was just as a person,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we kind of came up, we come up with our definitions. We do some research and digging,
Yes.
and we come up with the context of how we want to circle this thing in somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you want me to read it? You want to read
Nope,
it?
I'll
Okay.
read it. Knowing yourself means understanding your strengths and weaknesses, your passions and fears, your desires and dreams. It means it means being aware of your likes and dislikes, your tolerance and limitations. Knowing yourself means knowing your purpose in life.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
You know what I mean? That's a lot. Especially when you start thinking about the importance of knowing yourself in the many different arenas that will come up in your life. You know what I mean? Just as a person, just you being
Mm-hmm.
you. Forget about being married or a parent, or
Right.
and just knowing yourself as you go throughout life and different changes and situations and how we respond to it. Is I don't think self awareness is not valued enough because we're so
Mm-hmm.
goal oriented,
Right.
till we allow the goal to decide sometimes who we are
Mm-hmm.
versus the goal coming out of who we already are
Right.
and who we're growing into that God has planned for. So, and with that mindset, it kind of ties right into relationships that we have, marriages,
Mm-hmm.
things that we invest ourselves into,
Right.
and hopefully things that invest themselves back into us in a
Right.
positive way, right? So, but since we're talking about marriage, that's we may venture off a little bit. We
Yes.
may add some things in, but
Mm-hmm.
at the moment, our kickoff point will be in the context of marriage. So, um, one of the things that we constantly talked about for these last, what, soon to be 31 years, off and on, even when things were rocky, remember the focus, remember the purpose for
Mm-hmm.
why we said I do.
Right.
You know what I mean? And who you are in that process. That was that was a lot of work for me. It seemed like it was
Mm-hmm.
easy for you because you had to deal with me, I think. But
Because I knew who I was.
yeah, I
You
knew
know.
who I was, but I didn't like what it was.
No, no, no. I don't think you knew who
Well, I knew I was. I'm not going to say the man's name, but he happened to
you
be my dad. And if anybody know my dad, I'm not disrespecting my father. I love my father. He's a blessing to my life. But dad has stuff.
Yeah, which all of us do.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
some of that stuff transitioned to my pocket,
Yeah.
and so I had some of their behaviors and tendencies.
Right.
So I understood kind of who I wanted to be based off what the Lord was kind of showing me, but I kind of understood who I was,
Yeah.
and it was, Lord Jesus, it was a challenge. It was a challenge.
Oh yes, Lord.
Now I'm glad y'all can identify with that, because all y'all good folk. Y'all good Christian folk. Y'all good saved folk. Y'all love the Lord.
Well, you wasn't born a Christian.
Well, I wasn't. I think everybody else was though.
No.
No,
Nobody was born a Christian.
you sure? Because sometimes,
Read your word.
okay, I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying.
Right.
See, how you going to just put me out like
All
that?
right.
Okay,
Just
anyway.
saying. You know, we all got faults.
Yeah,
Every last one of us.
every last one of us. Everyone's working on something, which is important because that
Mm-hmm.
goes back to knowing yourself.
Right.
So I shouldn't just rough you up because I'm still working on me too. I'm still trying to identify all of me too. Right. So, but like we talk about it going into a marriage, it's important that I know myself and I continue to evaluate myself. So that way I can meet my commitment to you
Mm-hmm.
as well as meet the commitment to myself. Because if I can't be honest with myself, that's a whole other thing too.
Yeah.
Right. Because how sometimes if I can't be honest with myself, I won't be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
If I can't tell myself my why, how do I tell you my why?
Yeah, you can't.
I can't even pray
Mm-mm.
effectively when I'm not being honest to myself. The scriptures don't even come out right. My relationships with other people, it doesn't come out right because why? I'm not being honest to me,
Mm-hmm.
with me. So that kind of ties back into knowing my strengths, my weaknesses, my likes, my dislikes, my tolerances. So um and my limitations.
Right.
So when we start thinking about it from that standpoint, um, are we willing to pay the price that it takes to be committed?
No, some people don't. They rather have the marriage, have the wedding and not the marriage.
Mm,
Some people don't want to be dedicated in relationships. Some of them don't. Some of them not really dedicated to themselves when it comes down to certain things. So if you're not dedicated to yourself, then you're not going to be dedicated to anyone else.
that's true.
But just to have the lights and the weddings, the rings and the ceremony, a lot of people want all of that stuff, but they don't want the marriage itself.
Hmm.
So we have to commit. When we commit to the wedding, the ceremony, we also got to commit to the marriage. So we all have to do our part. Even when times get hard, you still have to commit to that marriage
Yeah,
because that marriage is the reason why you had that wedding.
that's true. That's true. Um, so it kind of goes into one of the things I think we talk about it off and on with different couples when we come in contact with different
Mm-hmm.
couples, where it says in Matthew 19, 11th verse in the Message Bible, it says, but Jesus said, not everyone is mature enough to live a married life.
Right.
Or some translations say, grow into the largeness of marriage. Man, that's hard.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's a hard statement when you think about it. We're not mature enough going in to live a married life.
Some people are not going to be married. That's just facts. Some people are not going to be married. Some people are selfish. Well, usually when we come into a relationship anyway, all of us are selfish.
Yeah,
Each person is
that's true.
selfish in some kind of way. But we have to work on that because the marriage is a oneness. It's not just you coming in and you doing what you doing and I'm coming in, I'm doing what I'm doing. We have to do this thing together. We
Hmm.
have to make sure that we both are on one accord. We have to be just one.
Yeah. And sometimes being one, I just can't have everything I want.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I can't go everywhere I want to go. I
Correct.
can't spend what I want to spend. I can't just make decisions and make moves like I want to move. I don't have to come when I'm single. If I don't want to
Yes.
come home for 3 days, I don't have to
Right.
because I'm accountable to me and me only, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I decide, hey, I'm gonna be out for 3 days, I gotta check in.
Right.
You know what I mean? And some people they get upset about that. They're like, man, I'm a man, I ain't
Mm-hmm.
checking in, or I'm a grown woman, I ain't checking in. I
Mm-hmm.
pay my own bill. I that all those things all that as I call it bravado and bluster that we throw out because
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to do what Jesus was talking about, be mature enough
Yes.
to live a committed,
Mm-hmm.
married, covenant life.
And that's what it is. They're
Yeah.
not. They're not being committed to it. They don't. That's not something they want to do. But before they even start talking about marriage, when they start getting engaged, or actually, it didn't go before that. When you're just dating, and if you have your mind set on getting married one day, you need to talk that over when y'all go on date nights. Talk about what you want to do as far as marriage go.
Yeah.
Have these conversations early. Don't wait until you get engaged or don't wait till you get married and then you realize this is not something I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because you do have to go in there. We do have to tell one another where we're going. It's just out of respect.
Right.
In case something happened, you need to know where I'm at. In case something happened, I need to know where you at.
Yes.
It's just something that we have to do. It's a part of marriage. And if you don't want to commit to that person, don't marry them. Tell them up front.
Yeah.
Give all the details of why this is not right for you. Don't you if you're not ready to settle down, just move on because it's not fair to the other person.
That's true. That makes bitterness.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That kind of creates the bitterness because you feel like you've been lied to.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there's been times we've talked to couples going in, and we would have different situations where people would say, "Well, I didn't realize, he or she was that way when we
Right.
were dating." But if a person is now it does happen. Some people play the role.
Yeah, some do.
There are situations I think people play the role and they get you bought into this
Mhm.
this this fantasy of who they are
Mhm.
versus the reality of who they are.
Right.
And so if I buy into the fantasy and now I commit my reality to your fantasy, and no disrespect to people that may hear this, I'm gonna be pissed,
Yeah. Right.
right? And it's not like say necessarily that you have the right to be pissed, but I'm understandably I'm gonna be upset.
Right.
I'm going to be disappointed. I'm going to feel as though I've been lied to. I've been taken advantage of, whether it's male or female. And I think sometimes we think men need to just man up and get over that.
Right.
But it's a real thing. Men sometimes hide their frustration and their disappointment in the umbrella, under the umbrella of anger, right? Or they'll do things just like, to make you feel what they feel. And ladies, you guys have full control full array of your the emotional spectrum. You
Right.
guys will come with everything and be like, yeah, and it's cool. But for us, it's as if, well, I'm supposed to just be okay with it and get over it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just move past it. But
Mm.
and here's the problem. We've been told that for so long, we don't know ourselves well enough to be able to communicate effectively to my spouse, to other friends, or people that are trying to be there for me to support me. Hey, this is why I'm upset. We say, no, I'm good. Well, you don't know
Right.
yourself when you're saying that you're good.
Right. Exactly.
Otherwise, you're lying to yourself, right?
Right. And for the ones that was, that put that act on when you're dating, so you don't get to see all that when you get married. Even if you didn't see it before when you was dating, you're gonna see it when you get married. And the reason why I say you're gonna see it is because as soon as you have an argument, that's when you're gonna see that true person.
Oh yeah.
That's when that person's gonna come out. So if you didn't see it before, you're gonna see it then.
And you got glimpses of that
Oh, yeah,
person
you
while
definitely
in the
get
dating
glimpses.
process.
Yes.
Because in the dating process, we make mistakes, right? I said I was going to be there at 7:30, 7:45. Somebody a little salty, but
Yeah.
it's okay. We're gonna still go out and have a good time. But it's
Oh,
like
I would be salty because I don't like being late.
I know, well, yeah, that's a whole. We had that was one of that was one of
Yeah.
those merger points that we just had to say.
Yes.
You know what? We gonna work on this, and
Mhm.
it's not gonna be we out. Somebody
Right,
gonna
yes.
we're not falling out over this thing. Because me, I don't like being anywhere earlier than I have to. I'm there for the event. I'm not there for the lead up. I'm in. We execute. I'm out. Let me go do what I want to do. You're professional. I'm not the professional yet. You rubbing off on me because
I don't know. I can't tell that yet.
no, well, my rule was, I'm gonna be there when it start. You like to be there like 10, 15
At
minutes
least
early.
that, yeah.
So,
Because things may happen. Traffic could be backed up. I mean, anything can happen. I try to give myself some room
Mhm.
so that way I can be on time and be there when I'm supposed to be there.
So, and that goes with me knowing myself
Right.
because I already know I'm gonna get there at if it started at 7, I'm getting there at 6:59,
Yeah. Yeah. And then you be late.
and then I'll be late. The traffic lights,
Right.
and I'm
And
driving
then
all
you trying to
crazy.
drive all fast. Get ready to cause an accident because why you should have left 5 or 10 minutes earlier. It don't hurt. Prep yourself. Give you that 5 or 10 minutes that you get there early. Prep yourself. Do what you got to do.
So what I do now is when I get somewhere early, I just sit in the car.
There you go. I used to get to work 15, 20 minutes early.
Yeah,
When I knew
couldn't
I
do
was
that.
realized that early, I would sit in my car. I'll take a nap real quick, whatever it is, because sometimes I'll be tired anyway. But I'll take me a nap, put my alarm on, and do whatever. Or I can get some breakfast, eat my breakfast in the car or something like that. Or, go to work and clock in and eat my breakfast.
Yeah. So knowing that about myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing myself, being honest with myself, I realized that I had to learn that behavior from you. That was a
Yes.
skill set I didn't have. And it was a preference. It's 100% a preference. It's not that it's right or wrong. It's 100% my preference,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I had to learn to be honest with myself
Right.
and know myself and say, I have to hold myself accountable.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's the good thing. When I hold myself accountable, because I know myself, there's no need for me to have you come along and wear me out,
Right. Right.
right? And I think that's another thing too. I have to know my limitations.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want the argument.
Nope. Mm-mm. Even though sometimes I want to give it, but I don't.
Well, see,
I don't.
when you, this is me. I love you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't necessarily have to always say something. I can tell by the vibe that you're putting off. I can tell
Mm-hmm.
by the look that you may have. It's not angry, but she's just not. Y'all know how I look when your husband, your wife is just not vibing right. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it makes you feel uncomfortable. It makes
Mm-hmm.
you feel like, man, I just disappointed this person who I love. You know what I
Right.
mean? And they're not wearing me out, but I can
Mm-hmm.
see that I made a negative deposit. You know,
Right.
um,
Well, it's not. I don't really say that. It's not
okay,
always a negative deposit because sometimes it's just you just don't want to be bothered that day. It's nothing towards you. It may not be, anything that you did.
and that's just you
Some
knowing
day,
yourself.
yeah. Just I know myself. Sometimes I just want to just sit back, just be quiet. Don't want to say anything right now. Don't want. Just don't want to do anything. But just spend time with just me.
Hmm.
That's it. But it's nothing wrong with me. I may look like that or I may, come off that way, but there is nothing wrong.
So what you're saying is, in a marriage, in the process of a marriage, we need to be aware of that tendency,
Yes.
right? Like we talked about before, those tendencies,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Correct.
communicate that to your spouse.
Right.
Hey, I'm not upset with you.
Right.
Granted, that did happen, yeah, but that's not why,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that takes away the assumptions
It does because then you communicate.
because you're communicating, right? Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and I think that's one of the things we've grown into
Mm-hmm.
earlier in the marriage. We assumed so much, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Or
we did.
we just we I would place my emotion or you would place your emotion on me as if,
Mm-hmm.
that was the real thing.
Right.
And no matter what the other person said, oh, you lying. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
why that turns into a whole
Yeah.
thing. Tell the truth. I'm
Right.
telling you the truth. It has nothing to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
Just chill. Oh, don't tell me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So then it turned in. We would have, looking back, and I'm quite sure y'all do the same thing. When you look back, some of those arguments, they don't have any value.
None.
They don't even have a start.
Nope.
All they have is an emotional tangent, and
Yeah.
then next thing you know, we was off into the woods, and somebody
Mm-hmm.
talk about somebody's mama.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah, that's true.
it started off with where
Real
you want to go
small.
for dinner,
Mm-hmm.
and then, well, I decided the last time. Oh, you didn't. Next thing you know, your mama can't cook. Your daddy, he got 4 eyes and he walk funny. You know what I mean? Your kids ugly. They my kids too. That's because they
Say
look
no
like you
stupid
and your
stuff.
family, your big
Right.
head family. So all those mean things that just happen to come out when you get angry about craziness. And it all starts with, do I know myself
Right.
well enough
Mm-hmm.
to say, you know what? Just shut your face.
Right. Sometimes you gotta be quiet. Just be quiet. Let the other person have it. Or at least let them think they have it. Just be quiet.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay to be quiet sometimes.
There's a pastor friend that we have. One of his favorite sayings is, I can't be held accountable for something that I don't say.
Right. Smart. Really smart.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, if we adopted that in marriage sometime,
Right.
I can't be held accountable for something that I don't say,
Mm-hmm.
but I need to make sure that when I do communicate with my spouse effectively, I say it in a way that speaks to their language, not
Mm-hmm.
my mental or emotional frustration.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Correct.
Because why? I need to be on point. I need to be able to
Mm-hmm.
fix this thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because why? I want to grow into the largeness of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I want a marriage that lasts. I want a marriage that's sustained by God's grace.
Successful marriage, yeah.
Yeah.
People watching you.
Yeah.
And you have some family members that's growing up, watching you. And even some of the ones that's already been married, their marriage may not be the same.
Yeah.
And so they looking at, our marriage or other people's marriages and like, hey, I don't have this in my marriage. So let me see if I can incorporate that in my marriage. Let's see if, we'll be able to talk to one another and see if things can work out different ways than what it's already doing.
Mm-hmm.
So you just never know. People are watching.
People are watching because we're all trying to learn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, granted, if you're a person of faith, we're people of faith, so we believe God's gonna give us wisdom.
Yeah.
But He also places people in your path that you can learn from.
Yep.
Right? People. That's the benefit of testimonies. I honestly believe that, because it helps us to understand. First off, you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
You're
That's
not.
right.
Your marriage is not the only marriage where they argue over who going somewhere for dinner.
Right.
Your marriage is not the only marriage that has conversations about somebody leaving something on the floor, or somebody leaving the toilet seat up, not
Right.
taking the trash out, who left this in the car. I mean, every marriage has your mother said this. I can't stand your family. Every marriage,
That's
just
something.
about, has these things in it,
Yep, they do.
right?
They do.
So, and I think sometimes it comes to one of the points that we kind of going to go into right now is we come into marriage with preconceived notions about what we'll dislike and like
Yes.
about marriage based off of sometimes the relationships our parents
Right.
or people that we esteem highly and how their relationships went, or like some of us, we didn't have good marriages, so we used to look at Cliff and Claire like the Huxtables, like
Yeah.
well, when I grow up, I want to be married like they call married.
Right.
Well, they weren't even really married.
No. Sure wasn't.
There was no reality in that. Their marriage was so scripted that at the end of the day, they still don't live like that probably with their spouses now.
Well, no, for Felicia Rashad is already divorced, so it's not the same.
It-
It's
yeah.
definitely not the same.
Wait, she divorced?
She's been divorced.
Oh yeah, Mark Rashad.
Yeah.
That's right. Dang.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep them lifted in prayer. Keep them because
And,
the
you
divorce
already
hurts.
see what happened with Bill Cosby, so
Yeah, poor Bill.
yeah.
Yeah, that brother there. You know, keep him in prayer
Okay,
too.
next one.
So all right. So one of the things that we have is the preconceived notions about dislikes and likes about marriage. So these are the things that we're going to try to sort of add this as we start, gradually moseying on to the end. Go back and think about your preconceived notions about marriage, the things that you like and the things that you dislike, and then compare it to your current state in your marriage right now.
Right.
Did they hold up? Did they make sense? Right. The next one is how will life work out? The type of person God will send, and then when we meet the one.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's three different things it sounds like, but it's all one thing. As you're going through your life, we say, well, by this point, I'll have this situation, or by this age or stage or financial situation, I'll be able to do these things this way in this manner. And when things don't turn out that way, how do you proceed? Do you know yourself well enough that you won't accept
Right.
the false goal?
Right.
Will you know what I mean? Can you be patient enough to wait for, okay, this is what I want, but this is not necessarily God's plan or
Right.
God's best for me. You know what I mean? I think we hear a lot of people say they got married and they just didn't wait. They should have
Right.
waited.
Yes.
And now they got Mr. or Mrs. Right now versus Mr. or Mrs. Right.
Correct.
So now they wait for God to make their marriage over again.
Yes.
And He can. It's going to take some
Yes.
work.
Definitely.
He can. Trust me, He can. It's going to take some work. But we make it a joke, but God does have the one for you. Right?
Sure do.
So the next one is, what have you had, and this is a personal thing. Do you have a checklist of, okay, this is the type of person I'm going to marry? Because I've heard both, and I kind of believe somewhat on both ends. Tear the list up.
Right.
Because if you knew what you wanted, you could do it in your own strength. You wouldn't need to pray about it. You wouldn't need God's help. You wouldn't need to be aware and pray that God gives you the right person and that you're in the right state mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever the thing that you need to be in,
Yeah.
right? But then at the same time, you just can't just say I'm accepting any and everything either, because you can't be unequally yoked.
No, you can't.
You don't be unequally yoked, right? Okay, so you got anything you want to throw in?
Nope. You doing
Okay.
good.
All right. So y'all know we like to go to the scriptures. We're gonna go to the scriptures real quick. It says in Genesis 2:24-25.
Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed.
All right. So one of the things that I think we need to really kind of start touching on that's important in marriage, and we kind of did a little bit earlier. Um, Leave your mother, your father, and your mother and cleave unto your wife. The things that my wife liked was not the same thing as my mom.
That's right.
Now, grant their birthdays, their date of birth is 4 days apart.
Mm-hmm.
They are basically totally different people.
Yep.
And mindset, perceptions about certain things, their responses to certain things, their ideology about how to raise children was similar but not the same. My wife, still to date, I have not heard my wife use any profane words in the rearing of our children. Now, I thought my name was an expletive at one point, kind of like that old, Bill Cosby joke. I thought my name was something that it shouldn't have been.
Nope.
So or it was like my middle initial or something, my middle name or something, my nickname. But there are things that, and here's the thing: it may have been beautiful for your parents.
Right.
That display of love for your spouse. I'm doing a lot of talking. You want to jump in?
Yes, you do a lot.
Okay.
But go ahead.
That display of love that you have towards your parent, it may not be the same thing that your wife or your husband needs
That's right.
at this stage where you are right now. I'm not saying it doesn't have value, but at this particular stage, we have to be cognizant and aware of ourselves and aware of our spouse to say, if you don't call this love, I shouldn't offer it.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Mm-hmm. And you can't just be going around telling running to your mom and your dad about every situation that goes on in your household, because
That's
that's
big
why
facts.
it says leave and cleave. So you guys have to work that thing out. You can't be having other people involved in your marriage.
Yeah. Now, the decision making process in the marriage should be that threefold cord that we talked about in episode 1.
Yep, that's right.
Right? So it's if it's not you, your spouse, and the father really getting, y'all the main parts of that marriage getting straightened out and those issues getting resolved and putting plans in place on how you're going to communicate and how you're going to move on certain things, you're going to have problems. Because sometimes what you get in marriage is they'll give you their perception of scripture, how it works for them. And that's what we're going to get. We're going to give you the blueprint, as we like to call it, the blueprint or the roadmap that, okay, these are the things that we did without any type of guidance other than God himself. And then the few people that God was sort of like, let's cross paths, but we didn't have anybody to usher us through this process.
That's right.
So the only thing we know about marriage is God did it. And that's what we're here to tell you. You kind of got to let go of your perception of what marriage looks like and say, God, what does my marriage look like to my spouse? And you may have to do that several times throughout the journey of being married, right?
That's right.
Because you're constantly having to journey to become one.
Because you're going to keep changing. Both of you guys are going to change.
Every 10 years, I guess the trend says, every 10 years, you mentally, emotionally change your behavior.
So you got to know that person all over again.
Yeah, you got to learn them all over again, right? So it's important that we get the understanding that as we begin to set this up for a close, you have to. It's imperative. It's necessary to take time out and talk to your spouse.
Correct.
Not for the fact of placing blame, but I really want to understand how you see issues. Right. So one of the favorite things I like to say is, especially for brothers, don't ask the question if you don't want the answer. So the thing is, when you ask the question, tuck that chin, open your eyes up, and create an environment that she feels safe to answer because she can trust your heart. Right? I call it creating Eden in your home. Before the fall, not Eden after the fall, but Eden before the fall. So I want to have an environment in my household where my spouse, my wife, my baby, she can walk up, and even if it doesn't come out right, she can say what she needs to say.
Right.
And then from that point, we can calibrate.
That's right. That's how it should be.
And I do the same thing with her, right? And sometimes we preface it. Hey, babe, look, I don't know how this is gonna come out, and I don't know how you're gonna take it, but I just need you to be calm and then let me get this out.
Right. 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 That's correct.
You know, and then sometimes you just gotta look through the accusatory tones and just say, yeah, I'm not taking that part. I'm not gonna take. The Bible says, take no offense. I'm not gonna take offense.
Right.
I'm not gonna take offense. I'm gonna seek peace. I'm gonna pursue peace at all costs.
That's right. It may take some work, but it could be done.
We done it. We're
Yes,
doing it.
we
We
have.
still do it.
Yep.
We still do it. So, when you start doing those things, here's some things that we want you just to ask yourself. You want to go through one?
Yep.
Okay.
Are you willing, in the interest of unity, to submit your desires, no matter how good, to God's purpose in your life, in your marriage?
Mm-hmm.
Do you find yourself responding with anger when your agenda is challenged? That's a good one.
Yeah.
Do you insist on things being done your way? Are you willing to compromise on which idea is executed first? And the last one, are you willing to wait for God's work through His Spirit in the life of a mate, or in my life of your mate?
You know,
Good
so
questions.
those are the questions we just want to just throw out. These are the questions I think we talked about as well as asked ourselves. One of the things that we realized, especially that last one, there were things that we would pray, you know, Lord, do this for my spouse. Lord, pray do this for my wife. Lord, your daughter, we all that him and hawing I was doing praying that God would fix my wife. And almost every time, God was like, well, this is what I need you to do.
Yeah, He'll show you first.
He would
Not
show
that
me
person.
me and then let me work on me.
Right.
And then the whole time I'm working on me, praying about her, all of a sudden, things just kind of like took care of themselves. And God had already answered the prayer by me changing my behavior.
Right.
Ironic, right? Kind of weird. He fixed her because I was no longer her trigger.
Right.
And he fixed me and I was no longer her trigger. But yeah, you know what I'm saying. So it's very important that I don't pray about my spouse.
Right.
I pray for my spouse.
Right.
Right? Makes sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I had to stop praying about you and start praying for myself, praying for you, praying about myself, and that's how things start working out the way it did.
Yeah.
That's just like going to God and telling on myself, and that's what I had to do. You know, if He asked, I asked Him help me. If He helped me, guess what? Eventually, you're gonna line up. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
You know, my daddy never left me or forsaken me, so He's not gonna start now.
That's right. That's right. He loves us with an everlasting love.
Right.
So his plan is for marriage to be beautiful. That was his intent. That's the whole purpose. I think in Malachi it says, why did he make two one? That he would bring forth a godly seed. You can't really bring forth a godly seed in chaos.
Exactly.
I mean, he can.
But that's what
But
he don't want that in our marriage.
He don't want that either. That wasn't his plan.
No.
That wasn't his best plan. So, yeah,
Yep, that's it.
I think that's,
We have to respect people's time. So
yes, we
we don't
respect
wanna
your
go
time.
overtime. Exactly.
Yeah. So, once again, we just want to say thank you so much. We appreciate everyone. If you have a chance, please hit the like button, the subscribe button,
Yes.
and then, of course, that share button. Someone somewhere is going to either hear this, is going to bless them, or they're going to pass it along, and it's going to be a blessing to other people.
That's right.
So it's a beautiful thing when we finally get the communities with strong marriages. Strong, godly marriages. Yes. All right, so remember, it's a journey and not a sprint.
See you next time.
See you next time. Remember, tell your spouse you love them. Hey, babe. I was going to say it first.
It's too much.
Yeah, but it was my idea. I kind of wanted to say it first. She's just stingy. I love you, though.
Not selfish.
I'll receive your love. Thank you.